Hey, welcome into Rob Wright's Jack's Pop Culture. Hey, how did the Pacific end? What happened on Okinawa? Find out with Heather and I next. So, hey, welcome back to Rob Wright's Jack's Pop Culture. And I've got my friend Heather right here. Hi, how are you today, Heather?
Doing great, Rob. How are you?
Doing good. Ready to wrap up the Pacific, right?
Yeah, ready to wrap it up and kiss it goodbye and move on to another.
Yeah, we've got so the Pacific, we decided to do episodes 9 and 10 because the finale is just kind of a wrap up of where everybody is, and we figured we could get through that and episode 9 pretty quick. And we wanted to do both of them for you guys to keep you guys entertained and keep you informed. But we've got some interesting ones. Okinawa was pretty intense, and we'll talk about the intensity of it. There's a lot of history there, a lot of cool stuff with that part of the war. And then we've got the ending, which will bring all our characters full circle. And it was an interesting one. So we're going to wrap up the Pacific, and then we'll start on Masters of the Air next month. So stay tuned for
looking forward to that. Something totally different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Air, is it air? Do you know if it's air just over Europe or does it
air over Europe? Yeah,
just over Europe. Okay.
Yeah, the air war in Europe. So I don't know if I'll be able to get Marty back for that. I don't know what his tour schedule's like. I know he's doing some tours in Europe, and he's right now in the Pacific. He's actually in the Pacific. He was in Peleliu this weekend. So I'll see if there's a possibility to get him back. But the air war in Europe is interesting. Different areas and different places where they have had him or had them, and just the different things that happened to those guys. So should be interesting. So I did watch that series a couple of years ago when it first came out. I thought it was good. Thought it was not quite Band of Brothers, but it has some good characters that you follow, and it's a good series. So plus, I don't think it's long. I think it's only like 6 or 8 episodes, not 10. So
okay, not like this one.
Yeah, not like this one. But wanted to say hi to a few people. SP4H joined the chat. I know Kurt James was here a while ago. Baxo JZ, how are you? And 2104 Dogface is here. And he said South Boston St. Patrick's Day Parade and 250th anniversary of Evacuation Day. It was nuts. Cool. Wow. That's awesome. Very cool. So glad to see you guys in here. All right. Well, hey, let's talk about episode 9. Get right into it. Heather, do you want to read the summary for episode 9?
Sure. Okay, episode 9. So the 1st Marine Division is now on Okinawa and coming ever closer to defeating the enemy. The weather and the heat are still proving to be difficult, but the physical conditions reflect their own mental state. Constant stress from never-ending fighting results in a variety of reactions from the men. For the first time, the men also have to deal with the presence of Japanese civilians who are being given safe passage through the U.S. lines to safety in the rear. They arrived on Okinawa on April 1st, 1945, April Fools, and in early August, they hear that a special type of bomb has been dropped on Japan.
Yep. Interesting stuff, huh?
Yeah. Yep. April Fools, and kind of interesting. I thought, that the men actually joked that it was April Fool's Day because they expected when they got to their area where they're, landing on the beaches, getting ready for the assault, they expected a heavy fire and a lot of resistance from the Japanese, like they had gotten on Peleliu and Iwo Jima, and nobody was there. The Japanese had all kind of gone into these cave systems and tunnels and focused on certain points of the islands. So their strategy, which I thought was interesting at that time, is the Japanese knew that they could not hold Okinawa. They knew the Americans were going to take it. And so their strategy was to hold out as long as possible just to slow the Americans down so that they could prepare better on mainland Japan, prepare the civilian population there because they were going to fight to the death. Like every man, woman, child was going to fight to the death on Japan. So they thought delay, and then kill, inflict as many casualties on the Americans as possible. So that was kind of their tactic, and it's odd. So April Fool's Day, you get to the beach and you expect this big battle, and no Japanese soldiers to be found, which I thought was an interesting tactic.
Oh yeah, very much so. And the other aspect of it is that Okinawa is kind of the last stepping stone before you can reach the Japanese mainland.
Yep.
And so that's part of it. It was kind of like, hey, we're going to hold on for dear life before the Americans get to our mainland and
Yeah.
invade Japan. And my understanding is that had we not dropped the bombs, we were ready to go into Japan, and that would have been some serious difficult fighting. So
Yeah. Well, you look at the massive casualties on Okinawa, civilian too, and Japanese and American soldiers, and just their mentality of, no surrender, absolute loyalty to the emperor, and die for the emperor. And it just they had kind of instilled, like in the civilians too, a contempt for the enemy with propaganda. And everyone really was just like on Okinawa, where we see in this episode 9, using civilians as shields, using them as kind of booby trap, with bombs, even like women with babies. And um they were prepared to do that on Japan. Like even civilians, they were like, whatever you have, a fork, a spoon, a knife, you fight to the death, you don't surrender. A lot of men, like, even killed their wives and kids because they couldn't, like on Okinawa, because they had instilled in them this fear that the Americans were so brutal that you would be tortured, beaten, whatever else, horrible things would happen to you if you were captured by the Americans. And in addition to the just the shame of surrender. So yeah, I think that kind of gets lost sometimes in the decision to drop the bombs, was how many casualties they had projected trying to invade Japan itself.
absolutely. And the other aspect of it is that the Japanese themselves, some of the soldiers would hide among the
Yeah.
civilian population, refugees, and then pop up and kill as many Americans as they
Yep.
could, almost a kamikaze style,
Yeah.
thing. And it just was brutal. And we can kind of talk a little bit about the Japanese view of other Asian countries here, because Okinawa was its own country before conquered by Japan, and the Japanese didn't look favorably upon the Okinawans at all.
No, they thought they were like a lower race, or kind of like a half-breed race, and basically had no respect for the people there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Lombardi 1969. Glad you're here, and also want to say hi
Hey.
to our Madman 4, who's on his other channel. He's got a live stream tonight, so check that out later on.
Oh yeah, our Madman 4.
Yep.
How's it going?
So Lombardi 1969 says, "I always heard that many Japanese civilians would fight to the death in case of an
Yep.
invasion." Yeah, yeah, and that's why Okinawa was critical for us to take, but also it's that step closer to the Japanese mainland. And by this time of the war, you also had the kamikaze planes, and my grandfather had personal experience with that, because one of the planes that he took off of, his carrier, some of his bomb groups, some of the carrier group, were the first to get kamikaze planes that hit their
Oh wow.
aircraft carriers and support ships. That was in the Battle of Leyte Gulf.
Yeah. That's really scary too. And like I was watching like some of the documentaries on the Battle of Okinawa, and like this, because this episode kind of only shows the Marines and like a very specific point in time, but
Mhm.
the naval battles around Okinawa, this they had heavy kamikaze attacks, and just the loss to our naval fleet, the battleships, looking at that footage is just incredible. Like You can see
Yeah.
like the men just, when these planes and broken apart pieces of planes are just coming towards the carriers, towards the battleships. It just, yeah, it's horrifying stuff.
Yeah, and we've got the air war in Europe that we're gonna watch with Masters of the Air, but I wish there was a series that would go into the air war in the Pacific because that's fascinating. And
Yeah,
my grandfather fought in that, and I would love to know more about it. I've read some about it, and I've seen, there are some movies out there. There are quite a few movies out there depicting it, but I'd like it from a historical series standpoint if they could do
yeah,
something like that. Maybe follow a couple of carrier groups would be interesting.
yeah, it would.
But let's talk about the characters in this. I think we've covered a lot of the background, but we got some new characters. Again, we're adding new characters to this and the second to last episode. Uh, I understand the need for it, but at the same time, I sit there and I go, okay, guys, we followed 3 different Marine groups, actually 4, because Basildon went into a different one, and we keep adding people every time. What are we doing here?
Well, one of them's a red shirt, right?
Yeah,
Ham with two
yeah,
M's.
yeah. And with
It
two
was
M's,
Ham
yeah,
with two M's.
yeah. You got
Yeah.
Peck,
Yep.
so and a new
Our main guy,
lieutenant.
oh yeah, Lieutenant Mackenzie, who takes over for Halden, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Who was killed
mhm.
uh last episode or the one before.
The
Can't
one
remember.
before, yeah,
Okay. Yeah, Lieutenant Mac. And
yep,
our favorites, of course, Snafu and Sledge are back. Bill
mhm.
Lyden, he's been there. Burgeon, Sergeant Burgeon's there still.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of characters that are returning, but some that are coming back. And as we get into this episode, we see how war has just kind of changed somebody, and I think Sledge completely changes in this episode, and I think it's going to be interesting to talk about just what war has done to him. I think it's pretty interesting how Snafu kind of goes through some stuff in this one too.
Yeah.
So, um, but let's get into it. Let me bring our slides here and add these to stage. And I don't know if I've got them in full order. Episode 9 was a little bit harder to grab photos for because you got so much going on all at once, and some of the pictures show the downtime and back. So we got a lot of in this episode. Just so you guys know, there's marching and downtime, and then there's part of a battle, and then there's marching and downtime and a part of a battle, and it's kind of a repetitive formula. It works, but it's hard to do when you get different slides and you're having to put them together as quickly as you can. So fun stuff. All right, so they come in marching in the slop, and we see some of the Okinawans coming back, and basically what the Americans did was Okinawan civilians got a free pass, and they got them out because we're trying to clear all the area so that we could actually fight the Japanese and not the Okinawans. So we got a lot of those, and Snafu has some fun with these new recruits and their ponchos. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Doesn't he swap out, because some of them are holy and torn, and they swap them out. But I was wondering, like, God, there's so much rain and mud. Does at some point does the poncho even matter? I mean, it seems like he's just trying to get one over on him, and it's kind of funny. Like, get the new
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. He's like, those new ponchos got all kinds of chemicals in them. You don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah, that
I'll
was
swap
funny.
you for mine. Okay, if you want. He gets one over on him. I just thought it was pretty funny. Um, and then we start to see some of these civilians, and you get the lady with the baby coming through, and just kind of this is kind of gruesome, but
This
I
was
totally
really gruesome. I mean, did she have like a grenade or explosive and was being like forced out? Um,
yeah, that was a little bit later, but it's
oh,
just
that's
like
the
oh my
later
gosh,
one.
yeah,
This is just the when they're bringing out like the
yeah,
civilians passing through.
yeah. I don't ask. Yeah, Sledge's storyline on Okinawa is difficult. Um, see 2104 Dogface. I got a nice minty World War II Marine poncho, still kind of soft.
Really?
Really, that's awesome.
That's funny.
But yeah, you got that, and then we get to this point where okay, so you had the Marine Corps and the Army stationed there, and the army had taken some Japanese prisoners, which, from our understanding, was not common. It was very
Right.
uncommon to get Japanese prisoners. And my understanding of this situation, correct me if I'm wrong, it didn't happen the way they depicted it here. There were some prisoners, but they were well under control by the U.S. military. There was one that was blocking the road, but they put him in line, and that was the end of it. There was no real spitting on anybody or scuffle or anything like that.
I think
Um,
there was a confrontation with either Sledge or one of the men and the man who was in the road, like,
yeah.
because the guy in the road was trying to cause a confrontation.
Mhm.
But there was not any, like, spitting on them, calling them names, like, that's kinda made this for the show.
Yeah. And this is part of what Marty kind of told us about, was that essentially, um, they were trying to depict it in a certain way, and it was it that part didn't necessarily happen. While there you have certain prejudices and stuff like that, they were on mission and they were trying to get where they needed to go. And the
Yeah,
Japanese were pretty brutal to the Okinawans, and they weren't. We'd cover this before. Is they weren't keen to surrender. They would rather kill themselves rather than
yes.
surrender.
And take as many other people out with them
Yeah.
as they killed themselves too, and I think, if you look at, Sledge's book, just some of his commentary and interviews, um, he said, "Yeah, we hated each other." Like, it's not racism in the way, like, they're trying to call it racism. He's like, "We just hated each other as enemies because, the fighting was so intense, and the way they fought, they would not surrender, fighting to the last man, trying to take people out kind of in these, ways where they're, hiding it or booby trapping themselves." And he said, "We knew that we had to kill every single one of them. Like, they would not surrender, and just to make it stop, you had to kill every single one of them," and that was kinda where that mentality came from. It wasn't racism based.
Yeah, the other aspect of it was this that you had the Geneva Convention, but there's a big difference. So in Europe, there all the European countries before even going to war at that time still had those rules and those laws about prisoners. The Japanese had not signed that and
Right,
did not hold to it. So that's where you get the stories about the American prisoners, which there are several of them and very famous stories about them that we may cover through our course of World War II. Um, that's why prisoners were treated differently. We tried to uphold as much as we could, but you didn't really have a lot of Japanese prisoners that weren't trying to kill themselves and take out other Americans.
right.
You had to watch them carefully because they would grab a grenade or grab something to not only kill themselves but kill as many Americans as they could. And we saw this on, Guadalcanal episodes where you had some of the Japanese soldiers that were shot down and barely alive, but no, they were holding on to a grenade until some Americans came up to them and they would take their life along with that. So
Yeah,
that's what would happen. And it was part of their culture. Their culture was dying for their emperor, and it was dishonor to surrender. So we need to understand that because I think when you look at it from a holistic view and you're not understanding war and culture and the time period, you sit there and you can try and apply our modern thoughts to what happened back then. And you can't really do that. That's why you got to take history and kind of take it for its period and understand what was going on.
right.
So, and that's part of what we're doing here. Heather and I aren't historians by any means, but we try and understand and learn and grow forward from it because not only is it interesting, but also we learn a lot. So, okay, so yeah, it was kind of crazy, and you had Sledge versus the Japanese prisoner, and then they're going up the hill, and I thought it was very. I don't know that I got a good picture of it. They're going up the hill, and they're trying to get the mortar in place in the mud and muck.
Yeah, and he talked about how hard it was to carry supplies and weapons in this mud. If you look at the mud, it's sometimes knee deep in the actual footage. It
Mhm.
just there was so much rain and, carrying all the heavy equipment and the ammo, that was really you had the coral before, now you've got the mud, which made it super challenging.
Yeah, I think this
Just
is one of the mud
filthy,
shots.
right?
Yeah.
Filthy, like, because I mean, oh my god, you see at the beginning of the episode, the real footage, and there's, like, bodies laying, and they're covered with flies, and so the mud's just filled with maggots and, the stench, I mean, they're not able to keep, like, latrines separated out, and he said that the filth was one of the worst, it just took the toll mentally on them, the conditions, the constant rain just would be brutal.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And they were trying to set up the mortar. They're digging foxholes in the rain and find out that they're digging into a grave,
Yeah,
uh, which is just
that was
disgusting
just
and awful.
yeah, yeah,
That it was just freaky.
yeah.
Um, so, and then they get into battle, and we see that the mortars were covered with a tarp that had holes in it, and so the mortars are getting wet, and they try and set it up, and there's one that misfires, which I thought was interesting, and was it Snafu that grabs it and he's holding
Right,
on to it? I'm just like, what are you doing? He's got it with gloves, but he takes it and he buries it in the dirt. I'm like, there's no way I'd be touching
right.
that, you know?
Yeah, not touching that.
Yeah,
Jeez.
you know?
Yeah, that was a good scene.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy with Sledge and Snafu on Okinawa is what we're talking about. Yeah. And anyway, so they have to go down and get more supplies, and they're getting more supplies, and they're down kind of in this valley area, and then there's the Japanese lines right across from there. I don't know why their supplies are so close to where the Japanese are, but there's a family that's coming across the lines, an Okinawan family that's trying to get away, and it's just brutal what happens.
Yeah. The Japanese have no concern for any of the citizens, they just mow them down. They just take them out.
Yeah, and I mean, oh my goodness, it's just insane.
Yeah, it's just horrible. But, I
Yeah,
mean, you look at how they looked at them, I mean, they kinda used them in for shields or, didn't care if they died. If they could use them to fight, then fine, but they really didn't have any concern for the citizens there.
yeah. 2104 Dogface says you have to clear the misfire and pray that it's not delayed fuse or that it cooks off.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine because it could blow up right in your face right there. So
Ugh,
I understand burying it, but
who
I
gets
just
that
like,
job, though?
yeah.
I don't want that job.
Well, I
God.
mean, it's literally playing hot potato, you know?
Right.
I mean, good grief.
Jeez. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's brutal.
Yeah, that part was yeah, I know. That's just really difficult. But like, there's the part where Snafu holds back like Ham or one of the other new guys that wants to help the boy because he's the last one of the family to get hit, and he's still moving. And he's like, no,
Mhm.
there's nothing you can do for
Yeah,
him, or you'll get hit too.
right.
And of course, they get the supplies and they get them back, and one of their guys gets killed on that. But it just was a
Yeah.
brutal, beat down on there. So crazy stuff. But yeah, I mean, it just I can't believe that. I mean that all they went through. This was kind of worse than Peleliu in a way because at least Peleliu you knew kind of where people were and you kind of knew where the field was and where they were going. This you can't see a thing in the dark and in the rain, and the mud.
Yeah, and I think didn't I mean, this was 82 days, right? I can't remember how long Peleliu was,
Yeah,
but this lasted a long time, and a lot of times it was cold too. I mean, it was sometimes hot, sometimes cold, but then the mud and yeah, just miserable conditions and, just the filth that's in the mud. Like the
yeah.
scene, I know we're not at it yet, but where he's scraping off the maggots with the knife, it's like, ugh.
Oh,
It's
yeah, it's disgusting. Yeah. All right. So aftermath of that, they they have a little bit of downtime, and like I said, there's a lot of fighting and then downtime. So you get fighting, and then you get the guys with some downtime, and they're talking, and they're talking about killing, and you see Sledge here, and he's kind of battle hardened, and I think you see the interesting change in him.
Yeah, for sure, because he was like a sensitive, empathetic person, which showed in the very early parts of the season. And now you see what all this experience has done to him. I think they've showed it really well. Um, they're just at the breaking point, right? With
Mhm.
the between the battle and the killing and the conditions and just it really does a good job showing the psychological toll that it's taken on him, especially him, right? And hit the kind of person that he was
Yeah.
going through this.
Yeah, and he basically says, he wants to kill all the Japanese.
Mhm.
He doesn't care
Right.
anymore.
Yep.
Um,
Well, and that was he did say that was what they
mhm.
thought, right? Because that
Yeah.
was the only way to get it over, to make it stop.
Mhm.
You have to kill all of them.
Yep. And then there is a light conversation where one of the guys is got a photo out of a pinup girl that he met, and you got Snafu and some of the other guys fighting over this. I thought this was pretty funny.
Wasn't he trying to pass it off as his wife at first? And then they're like, "Wait," they see a different name, and was
Well, I
that in
think
the spot?
I think they were implying that he had a wife and then he had an affair, but I'm not
'Cause I
sure.
thought at first they were earlier, he was trying to say it was his wife, and then they
Yeah,
look at it and they're like, "What? What's this?" It's like
yeah,
got a someone else's name on it.
yeah, yeah. Maybe maybe that. Yeah, I guess it was something like that. But I thought it was funny. And then one of the guys says he was drafted, and I sat there. I'm like, I understand there was a draft, but I don't know how many people would be drafted in the Marines. You know,
I
so
don't know if I'm totally ignorant on that, if they
yeah, I don't know.
started drafting people later in the war because of I know there were heavy casualties in the Pacific and then just projecting what it would take if we were to invade Japan.
Uh-huh.
I did they start drafting into the Marines at that point? I don't kn I really don't know. I'd have maybe
Think they
someone in the
did,
chat
but
knows.
I'm not sure. I'm not a student of that
Yeah.
part. Which is interesting. And then also, um, we see Sledge just switch to a pipe,
Yep.
smoking a pipe, which actually is factual. Like, he actually did smoke a pipe
Yeah.
starting at that part of the war, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so, but yeah, interesting stuff. So, back to battling again. Um, you know, so they're a mortar squad, and usually they don't get called up to go to the front line, but apparently because of some infighting and some of the other crap. One of their lieutenants said, "No, your squad's going to the front line. Grab your rifles."
Well, I thought it was because their mortars were wet and they couldn't use them.
Yeah,
And
that was
so
part of it. Part of it the
they're
last time.
they're,
Yeah.
like, useless there, so he's like, "Well, no, grab your rifles, you've got no your mortars are gone."
Yeah. So, and I think this is where we get this shot back over here, where they're having to go to the front line here, grab their stuff, and then they're on the ridge. But yeah, they they start blaming each other. Oh yeah, it's your fault we having to go to the line.
Right.
No. So, um, and then and they get this bloody field that they are going through, and then you know Sledge gives advice to guys, hey, follow me, keep your weapons here, and they're going kind of down to this field, and they're coming upon people, and we see more civilians, and this is where we get the lady with the baby and the dynamite,
Yeah.
and she
Ugh,
gives them her baby, and then you see that she's got dynamite, and they're like, get away, and then she
that
detonates
that
self.
was yeah, that was a very disturbing scene. I mean, the lady
Yeah,
and with the baby and the dynamite. I mean, you knew I mean, they're not going up because you could tell there's probably something up there. She's probably booby trapped because she doesn't look like she's willingly really doing it, and, that one was really gruesome. Really,
yeah.
mm,
Yeah. And so the other thing that we had happened that in reality, Sledge never ran into this, but they ran into it with other patrols and other groups where the Japanese would have Okinawans that they would say, "Hey, go run into the Americans," because the Americans were, trying to move the civilians back. So they would give them
Right.
free passage to the line. Well, the Japanese would be right behind them. And so you'd have the Okinawans that we weren't firing upon. And then all of a sudden, these Japanese soldiers would just jump in.
Yeah.
But it was crazy. And then we have American planes shelling, and unfortunately, our guys are right there. So we had
You're
killed
right.
guys. Um, and it just was really sad and chilling because you saw this civilian lady, she's got bleeding hands and stuff, and it's like there's nothing we can do. We got to pull back because planes are
Yeah.
dropping stuff. I mean,
Right.
God, it was crazy.
Yeah. Just very
And and there's just another scene with Snafu where he's just kind of beat down by it, and I see that, but we will see him break down later on. But I just it just got intense,
yeah.
So
It took a toll on everyone, and I think the show did a good job of showing it. I don't know, like, until I saw the documentaries, I didn't really understand, like, how long this was and where they were on the island, how long it took, but, I think this episode was trying to show what just the psychological strain that's on them all at this point, and it did a good job with that.
yeah, from my understanding, I mean, this lasted 4 to 5 months. I mean, it
Yep.
was
Yeah, 82 days, I think, was
52
that.
days. It
Yeah.
was crazy, and I think, the problem is that a lot of the civilian populations in the other islands were either moved off or got the heck out of there, before either group arrived, and Okinawa is such a big island compared to some of these other ones that the civilian population couldn't
Yeah.
leave. And then my
Big.
understanding also, Heather, I don't know if you've looked into this or not, but you had an older population there too.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah, I think the older population, though, from what I saw, was more willing to surrender
Mhm,
because, like, the Japanese had kind of recruited fighting age men,
mhm,
to help them, but, the older people were the ones who actually kind of came up and tried to go through the American lines and get to safety, which some of them were able to, some weren't, but, yeah, older population, bigger island, a really very populated, much more populated, so it's really sad. I mean, the civilians, there were so many civilians were killed in this, and the
mhm,
island was just the damage to, everything there was is brutal.
mhm. Yep, and then when we come out of that group of fighting into the next day where we've got, they've fallen back and they're regrouping, and we got letters from home and a sad letter that Sledge gets.
Yeah, because 'cause wasn't he trying to say give the dog the best care, and then he finds out the dog dies? It was that what
Yeah,
happened in this one?
yeah, yeah. So he gets the letter saying the
Dog
dog is
was sick.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if I'd want that news if I was, like, in, dealing with this or in combat or away.
no, I don't
'Cause
know if I want
I'm
any.
bad. I mean, you're in a horrible state anyway, and then finding out your dog died, that would just be awful.
Yeah, it'd be even more depressing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, just that letter from home, and then another guy had a letter from that his brother was on Bunker Hill, where they had kamikazes and some other stuff that was brutal fighting as well. So you hear about that, um, and then you get this the other thought about hope they don't surrender, and another fight between the guys. So they're breaking down emotionally. I
Yep.
mean, you just really see it. It's gritty. It's difficult. They're frustrated with the fighting. They're frustrated with the conditions. It's not fun. It's not. You have no
Yeah.
reinforcements. It's not like a Band of Brothers. You would have the guys out there for a certain number of weeks, and then they'd move them off the line, and another group would come back. You didn't have that as much with where these guys were and what they were doing.
Yeah, and in Europe, you look at, winners got to go to Paris for a couple days. They can, there's towns and civilizations that they can go
Mhm.
to. I mean, this is just all. I know there was farmhouses and people's houses where they were kind of they could grab, chickens or whatever, but it's not the same as being, in more of a developed area. And they're basically constantly here dealing with even when they, would pull back and the island was what, Pavuvu, where they
Yeah.
would come to rest. It's full of rats and it's still raining constantly. I mean, it's just, it's like they never got a break from these horrible conditions.
Yeah, rats and crabs and stuff. I mean, the only place of civilization that we even saw, which it wasn't that great an episode, was Australia.
Yeah, that's right. Australia.
So,
Yeah, very
no,
briefly.
with different kinds of rats, but we won't go there.
Yeah.
No, Australia is great. I love
Yeah.
Australians. We were just talking about the way that they depicted some of that stuff in
Yeah.
there was
Yeah. Goofy
not as
episode.
good as it could be. All right, so you have a little bit more shelling, and I guess the thing here is you have some of the guys grow up and this notion about replacement soldiers. And we saw some of that in Band of Brothers. And Heather, I don't know
Yep.
if you want to talk about that, the older guys versus replacements. And we saw Sledge getting hazed by Snafu, but now Sledge is on the other end of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think Sledge or Snafu had commented about, not wanting to get to know them because they would just get killed, and we saw that in Band of Brothers too, and
mhm.
that's why he's kinda cold to Sledge initially, but they become really good friends. But yeah, they said the new guys, right, they're gonna just get killed right away, and, uh, that's why they don't wanna get to know them. It's like, you're just gonna die, and I'm not gonna keep going through that, like, getting to know you, becoming friends, and you're just gonna end up getting killed.
Yeah. And so then we get the calendar talk about, hey, what day is it? Easter Sunday, all this other stuff. And
Mm.
Snafu has his lines about, oh, here, pretty soon this, pretty soon October, here's a Christmas present for you.
Oh,
It was
Jesus, that was
disgusting,
funny.
but it was funny.
He was funny.
Yeah, but apparently that was Snafu's personality. So,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, he does that, and then Sledge gets called up to set up a mortar to hit a hut, and this is where he's climbing up this muddy hill, and he falls down into this disgusting grave thing, and there are maggots and everything. He's having to cut him
Oh,
off with a knife, and it was probably the most disgusting scene of the
yeah. It's
series.
just gross, yeah. Just ugh.
Yeah, so really sick. But they go and they're supposed to take out this hut, and the problem is that what happened was not only did the Japanese have underground bunkers, but they were hiding in people's homes,
Mhm.
and so apparently you have Sledge helping set up the motor and a mortar, and he's targeting and finding out the different degrees. And at first, there's a shot that misses, and then there's a second one that they finally hit, and then it's not over because there's another bonsai charge. And we've talked about these, but Heather, this one was kind of brutal.
Yeah, this one, I mean, they just come out and charge him, and it's not even night, so you can see in broad daylight, and they just all get kinda picked off.
Hmm.
Um, then the guy who's the lieutenant, he says, "Ceasefire," and Sledge just pulls out, his pistol and finishes the guy off, which I mean, you wouldn't just wanna leave him there, so I'm not sure what the lieutenant was yelling at him about.
Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. Maybe it was just overdone.
Yeah,
He's already dead. But I mean, Sledge is probably making sure, but I don't know. I mean, I if they're charging at me like that, I want to make sure they're dead. Not and
right.
given what I know about Japanese soldiers, still wanting to kill Americans,
Yeah,
I can't
and
blame
the
Sledge for
lieutenant
getting
was
out the pistol.
newer, right,
Yeah,
the lieutenant was newer, so I don't know, could be that too.
yeah. So crazy stuff. Um, but yeah, so Sledge takes out the pistol, and I guess this is showing the brutality and
Mhm.
how he's just become a stone cold killer.
Yeah.
It's what they were going for, and I totally get it. It fits
Mhm.
um, the narrative, and it's interesting that. And then you get more rain, and then Snafu just snaps, and he's complaining about the rain, complaining about everything, um, complaining about every little thing that's happening, and then the whole you see their whole group just go nuts, and Peck just goes crazy and starts shooting out in the open, and they're trying to get him calmed down, and that's when something happens.
Yeah, they're all trying to pull him.
Hmm.
He's standing there shooting, they're all trying to but they're laying down, like, you could see Sledge and Snafu, they're kinda, like, laying down, like, trying to grab his leg or something, and then the other guy, Ham, comes up and they grab him, get him down, but he's standing up right when the enemy fires back, and he gets killed, unfortunately, trying to get Peck, who's just completely lost it, so that was sad.
Yeah, and
I think he was the red shirt character there to come in.
they killed off Ham, and then Peck gets the lieutenant actually has some sense to get him out of here, and they got
Yep,
him out of the battlefield. So
yeah.
2104 Dogface mentions Jump into the Fight, the complete unbridged history of Easy Company, Volume 1. The book's cover was just finished the end of April book release. So keep your eye
Oh,
out.
wow.
Oh, cool.
That's
That's
pretty
awesome.
cool that they're doing a new book now. That's great.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That's
Yeah.
interesting. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to hear about Easy Company and just fascinating
Yeah.
to hear about that whole area. So all right, so Ham gets killed, and then we step into kind of the later on parts of the battlefield and the war, and um, we're going into where now they're clearing everything out. You've got tanks that have finally come up to support them. You got flamethrowers, which oh my goodness,
Ugh,
brutal stuff with flamethrowers. I mean, my goodness.
that
Uh,
always freaks me out. It's like they're just burning them out of the caves and the holes and
mhm.
dang. Yeah,
Yeah.
those are rough scenes.
Yep, and we get to this point where this picture is where, they're going into a hut and, hey, it might be a trap,
Mhm.
and it's just this kinda breaks me, this scene, it's just so sad. You got this mom with the baby, and she grabs his gun and kinda, um,
Pulls it to her forehead,
yeah,
right?
pulls it to her forehead, and I don't know if that, just I don't wanna show the whole thing because I mean, you can barely see it on here, but
You
just
can
right enough.
see, like, she looks like she's torn open, like, her
Yeah,
abdomen is and
yeah.
she's suffering, and so she's just trying to get someone to put her out of her misery, basically.
Yeah, and
It's
Snapoon
just
and
a baby.
Sledge are just like they don't know what to do, and then this one guy comes in, "What's the matter with you guys?" And he grabs the baby, and they
Right,
go out, and they're gonna get a corpsman, and then somebody goes in and
kills
kills
her.
the
Yeah.
lady, and then, you hear that he wants to, is gonna put him on report, and the truth of it is this did happen, but not the way they expressed. So apparently, Sledge did see this lady. He wasn't going to kill her. He goes to get a corpsman, and then somebody had gone in and killed her out of mercy. But it's just brutal. I mean, it broke me. I just was like, oh my gosh, you know.
Yeah, the whole thing, I mean, just to see, like, someone in distress like that, and the
Mhm,
fact that she's got, like, this little infant, but you're so afraid from all these suicide attacks that you don't even help her. I
mhm.
think that's what you're there it showed really well is, like, just the toll that this has taken, on everybody's humanity. Like, you don't know if it's a trap, and so you're not even gonna help clearly, like, a mother and baby who are dying like that. That was a tough scene.
Yeah, very brutal, very tough. And then I think, Sledge starts to get back into himself, and I think he's starting to regain some of his humanity. And you have this other scene where they're drinking out one of the holes, and there's a kid that comes out. He's unarmed, he has nothing, and Sledge just freezes.
This was tough too. I
Yeah,
think he's been there, he understands, I think, right, this kid is just a kid, he's not rushing at them with a weapon, he's just kind of a scared kid, and so he kinda stops and doesn't do it, and then getting the shot from behind, killing him, I was just like, "Oh god."
Yeah.
It's one person in all this, like, horrendous brutality, but it's just like, "Oh my god, how much more can there be here?"
Yeah, and the other aspect of this that's even worse is the guy was like, "Oh, I killed my first Japanese guy," and oh,
Yeah.
all of them need to be dead. And he's echoing what Sledge had said
Yep.
before, and
Yeah.
so it kind of comes full circle.
Yeah.
Uh, so, yeah, Lombardi, 1969, war screws up the mind so brutally. Yes.
Yeah. It's a hot time in the old town tonight.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think SB4H put that in there when we started talking about the flamethrowers.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was brutal too. So I mean, it was a good episode, but man, it just got brutal towards the end right there. And but I think you got to show this aspect of war because it helps us understand, what these guys actually went through and what they saw, you know?
It did a good job in the sense that, like, I when I saw it, I didn't get a good sense of really what happened from, like, a military battle standpoint.
Mhm.
Um, but we've already kinda seen that, right? Because we saw Guadalcanal, we saw Peleliu, we've seen Iwo Jima. And so I kinda like that they just focused on just the horrible conditions, the tragedy of the civilians, and this all this cumulative battle, the psychological impact of where they're at by this point. I thought it's a good choice. It doesn't really show, um, some of the same, like, the aspects of the battles that we saw earlier, but
Mm.
since we've done that, I thought it was a good choice in the episode to do it like this.
Yeah, I do too. It was interesting. And then the final scene was they're back off the line and Sledge pulls out the lighter and it's Gunny's lighter. And what it is a transition. He's now the old breed.
Yep.
And it's interesting to see that. And then we find out about the atomic bomb being dropped.
Yeah.
So, um, but brutal. So what are your thoughts on this episode overall?
Yeah, I think it was a good way to end that up,
Mhm.
to end up where the war stopped, and just really showed what the character progression. You see what's happened to them over all this time. I thought it was a really good episode.
Yeah, I thought it was a good episode too. The only thing I didn't like was the little tidbit about the Japanese prisoners there. I wish they had made it a little bit more accurate for historical reasons. But I think the rest of it works really well. I love the journey that we go on with Sledge there, where you see how just hardened he is, and then you see that he just kind of recaptures a bit of his humanity
Yeah,
there. And I think it bodes well into the final phase of the story
yeah.
here,
His
which I
his character work was great through this whole series. I think
yeah.
the development, the changes in his character, how he grows as a person changes over this time because he's so young when we start and he comes in. I do think, they could have done a better job talking about what the Japanese did to the Okinawans,
Mhm.
because it really doesn't distinguish that much. I mean, it kind of treats the Okinawans as Japanese citizens when they're not. The Japanese didn't consider them the same thing, so, um, to me, that could have been done a little bit better, like the brutality of the Japanese against the Okinawans. But overall, I thought this was a great way to kinda end up the war part of this series.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. I thought it was an interesting way to wrap it up. And I think Sledge's story and Barcelona's stories are the two best stories in here. And I think
Mhm,
they really did portray those characters very well.
they did.
While I think Leckie does have some value with his book and stuff, I don't know that following his character was as strong as the other two.
Yeah, no, I agree. Totally.
All right, let's get into episode 10. Part of the reason why we did both these back to back is usually we cover one episode, but episode 10 is pretty straightforward, and it's going to be episode 10. I think goes really fast.
Yeah, yes.
So,
Alright,
but
cool.
basically, episode 10. as we're getting into it, is kind of the summary of how these guys deal with post-war and what happens in the immediate aftermath of it. And I think that's an important aspect that we need to understand, because the PTSD is real. They called it shell shock back then, but it is very real, and it did happen, and we do see it every time we have a war and we have soldiers coming home, and we're still trying to figure out how to help soldiers reassimilate. So.
Yeah. And it was even less understood at this time, and I think
Mhm.
it does a good job of showing that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. All right. So let's get into episode 10. I'll bring up the slides in a minute, but Heather, do you want to read the summary?
Sure. Okay, episode 10. The war is over, and the men wonder what the future might hold for them. Robert Leckie returns home to his cold family and gets his old job back. His main purpose is to see if he can start a relationship with Vera, who lives across the street. Eugene Sledge makes it home 6 months after VJ Day and is met by his old friend, Sid Phillips. Eugene is having trouble settling into civilian life and cannot quite understand why some men like himself survived with no physical injuries when so many others died. Lena visits John Bassilone's parents and has something of John's she thinks they should have.
Yep. So this is an interesting episode, kind of wraps everybody up.
Mhm.
Uh, there are some questions that I have about some of the way they depicted a few things, but we'll get into that in a minute. But we got our usual characters, and I think it's good that we're focusing back on some of the main characters.
Mhm.
We get Leckie back, and the interesting thing is the way that people spell that name on different things, which is funny. That's another thing to get into some
Oh,
other time. Of course, we wrap up Sledge's story. You have a little bit of snafu, a little bit of Lieutenant Mac. Sid Phillips is interesting, but also we get a little bit of Lena. And we talked about this last month with Lena and everything that happened with her after John had died. I
mhm.
wish they would have showed more of that because I thought that was very emotional for her.
Yeah, and I understand with the show you don't want to get into. I mean, it was kind of negative. At least they did kind of touch on that she didn't get any insurance money, but they did more of a seemed like a happier interaction with his parents and his family than what actually happened. And I can kind of see not wanting to get into that. I didn't.
Yeah,
It didn't show kind of that they didn't really embrace her,
yeah.
which I can kind of see why.
Well, I mean, they didn't get a chance to even get to know her, and he was rushed to get the wedding done. I mean, it was
Right.
interesting. So, all right, let me add these slides to the stage because they're a little bit different. So we get in the hospital, and it's an interesting way to start this. So Leckie is in the hospital along with another wounded soldier, and you've got this girl that's reading the Iliad,
Yes, but
which I
but
don't know.
I thought it was funny though because she says, "You guys aren't even paying attention," and then Lecky says it all back, and I got the impression that because he's a writer and like kind of a scholarly person, that he knew the Iliad, he had it memorized, and that
Yeah,
was why he wasn't actually paying attention to her. He knew it, and so
yeah,
he could say it because he had it memorized. And I thought that was the funniest part of that interaction because she's kind of like, "Oh." You know, not realizing like he kind of pulled one over on her a little bit, and then he's like, "Oh, here's the comics."
yeah. I thought this was hilarious too. I was like, she's reading
It
the
was fun.
Iliad, and this is the time. The funniest thing is like she's reading the part where Achilles, one of his friends, died, and Achilles goes back to sulk in his tent, and I'm
Mhm.
sitting there going, "That's funny in a way because that's we've kind of seen some of that the
Yeah.
reactions to that, but it just was funny." And then he brings up the comics, Beetle Bailey, whatever,
Yeah.
um, it's funny. And then you find out the Japanese surrender, and everybody's who could walk is going off and just cheering. And meanwhile, all these people that are wounded are still, hello, what about these guys?
I thought it was a good place because you could have done that in any scene with any characters to
Yeah,
say, "Hey, Japan surrendered, the war is over." This was
yeah,
a good spot to do it because you can see all the people who weren't fighting, people who work in the hospital, all the support, they're like, yay, war's over. And you look at Leckie and you look at these like severely wounded men kind of sitting there like, yeah, but look at, what's happened to us. It's a
Mhm.
completely, you see the two reactions, and it's not like they're not happy that it's over, but a little bit still just shell shocked. And, the damage has already been done for them. So this was an interesting way to set that up, I thought.
Yeah, and then the other interesting thing we get is they're still in Okinawa, and Snafu and Sledge are sitting there, and then people are drinking alcohol and shooting off fireworks, and
Yeah.
apparently it's the people that were in the background that would bring supplies
Hmm.
and stuff that were doing this, but it's like Snafu and Sledge are still trying to process it,
Yeah.
and Lieutenant Max says, have VJ party your own, and gives them a bottle. But it's interesting their reaction to this. It's just like they expect to be fighting for the next couple of years. Because remember, they were talking about the calendar,
Hmm.
46, 47, and apparently went all the way up, and they're saying all the way up into the 50s. And it's hard to believe, hard for them to process that, hey, it's finally over.
Yeah.
So,
Good scene there.
and it's very different from, let's contrast it real quick. With Band of Brothers. I mean, that was interesting. Victory in Europe, and then VJ Day in Band of Brothers, where they're training to go potentially to the Pacific, and
Right.
they had the baseball game and find out the war's over, and they're celebrating, and they're in a much better place because they're just training. You know.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting in Band of Brothers, right? Because you get, once Germany surrenders, and they're there in Austria, where you start getting all the, the antsy soldiers, right? They're all drinking, there's mishaps happening, and because they are like, the war in Europe is over, but the war's not over, so it's not quite a celebration, like when Japan surrenders, because they know they're staying in, and they're, they have the drawing to see like who gets to go home, but everyone else is thinking they're going to have to go to Japan. So yeah, it's a little bit different, just based on the scenario, the situation that they're in.
Yeah. And hello, Radioactive just joined us.
Hey,
One of our buddies
Radioactive.
from the Detox channel. So good to see him. So it was interesting. I thought it was fascinating. And then we get this scene with Leckie, and this guy drives him back in the taxi cab. And I thought that was an interesting scene. He basically hands him his bag and doesn't charge him
Yeah.
uh, for giving a ride home. And you know, he's like, "Hey, I fought in the Pacific. We had souvenirs and other stuff. You guys didn't get anything in Japan and the Pacific." So
Yeah, he fought in Europe. The cab
yeah,
driver fought in Europe. Yeah,
but
it was a good interaction.
this whole thing kind of bothered me though. So this is one of the things that bothered me. Is like he gets home, and you would thought that he would have sent a telegram to his parents, or called them, or communicated to them some way. Hey, I'm coming home, and this just felt kind of weird.
This was weird, and I have not read much of his book. I have to say I've read more about Sledge and what he's written, and listened to some of his interviews. So I have to look, at Leckie and what his relationship was with his parents, because this was very odd. Like, I wonder if, like, why wouldn't you tell your parents you were coming? And then their reaction when he gets there is really odd. Like, they seem kind of like inconvenienced that he's home, and it's just like, oh god. But
Yeah.
his parents were odd from the beginning of the show, so maybe that's true. I don't know.
I don't know either. I'd have to read more into it, but apparently, basically, they used his room for storage, and they're going
Yeah.
to clear it out. But they didn't expect him home. I don't know what they were expecting at that point, but it seemed kind of cold and kind of off putting.
It
Just like,
was, and I wonder, are they just trying to kind of show that, like, 4 years everyone's kind of lived their life and been doing all these things, and all the stuff got moved into the room, like they're just trying to contrast the experiences, maybe, like, you've been here just fighting, that's been your sole focus, but everyone else has been like, all this life has gone on, and the parents have lived their life and moved stuff into the room. And I mean, it's sad to just show it that way, but I think it kind of just shows that, life kind of went on for everyone. And it, in a way that it's kind of like, feels like they're out on the outside now.
Yeah.
They have to reassimilate.
Yes, and I think that's what they were going for with this, to show that, to the soldiers, everybody else had moved on while they kind of stayed stagnant, and they're coming back to a world that's a little bit different.
Hmm.
It's like they lost 4 years of their lives,
Yeah,
uh,
it did.
and it's interesting in here. But I still think that if you're coming home to your parents, you would think that, oh, hey, we're glad you're back, hugs and kisses and
Yeah,
say, hey, we put some stuff in storage, let us help clear it out, hey, glad to see you, we didn't know what to do with all this, so we packed it up, we, you
right.
know or hey, we had correspondence, we feared the worst, and I don't know,
Yeah,
it's interesting. So
yeah.
um but yeah, it's fascinating. So then we get the guys on the train, and we'll just go through
This
all
was
their things because they interwove it back to Leckie and Lena and stuff like that. But we'll go through all the guys on the train
mhm,
real quick before we get to the end. So, um, I don't have pictures of it, but we have them joking around because they're taking the train from like San Diego and it's going all the way to the East Coast. And back then, train rides were overnight, they were longer.
yeah.
It was the only mean of
Well, that's a long
travel.
way to go
Yeah,
San Diego to the East Coast. That's a long
yeah,
way by train.
yeah, and with all the stops in between. So you had Snafu hitting on the girls, and he gets slapped,
Yeah,
the caboose
that was funny.
joke.
Yeah, "I wanna see your caboose," or, show me your"
Yeah, yeah,
That was
and they're
funny.
talking about jobs and marriage in the future, and we saw some of this at Band of Brothers too, is they're talking through it and they don't know, because I mean,
Right,
these guys, some of them were fresh out of high school, some of them were college, some of them had jobs, some of them were still working. It's just like, what do we do now? I'm 4 years older, but I'm still back. I'm coming back
right.
to a world where I was 18,
Yeah,
which,
and
my goodness.
with horrific memories now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I know both of my grandfathers, in their case, they came back. Uh, One of my grandfathers was already married, and he was coming back to a family and had to build a new life.
Yeah,
And the other one came back to finish school and then get married and start a new life. So it was interesting.
yeah,
Um, But, and Snafu was like, "I'm gonna get that girl."
yeah. It's funny.
Yeah, it was hilarious, and, and the ladies were very much, into men with uniforms. Now, I think it's important that we stop here and kind of break here, that the way the military had the thing is you had to be in plus a certain amount of time afterwards. So plus about 6 months. So what happened was Snafu and some of the other guys in his platoon left and got to go back home before Sledge did.
Mhm.
So the reality is none of this really happened. They just wanted to show it so they could showcase guys going home and what happened to them. But
Right,
Snafu and some of the other guys went home before Sledge did because he got there later than they did. And so
right.
Sledge actually they didn't show this, but he was actually, they had to do army detail to help clean up. And he went into China and had to clean up in the China. And so with that detail, he did come up home with some souvenirs and stuff. So
Mhm.
but I think they're doing it here to be able to, close out some of the stories. So, um, Bergen, he gets dropped off in Texas. Had to mention that because that's where I'm at. Um, and he's got Florence, who's going to bring home from Australia, and I thought that was interesting. But she wasn't there, and they're like, "Well, it takes a while to get somebody home from Australia."
Yeah,
And
that was
I thought it was funny, a funny discussion. How come you didn't tell us that on Okinawa? Well, I didn't want to jinx it.
yeah.
But but he gets dropped off, and you find his brother, his kid brother, and his dad are there for him. And I thought that was a kind of a warming scene where his dad shakes his hand, which is something important to a man, where his father shakes his hand like a man. That's just a sign of a father-son respect back there, which is really good. And you do see that. And then, not to spoil anything, but he did eventually get Florence, and they did get married, and it's interesting. And then Snafu, we're seeing right here, he gets dropped in his hometown of New Orleans,
Mhm.
and we see the end of Snafu's story. And um, just to kind of bookmark it off so we don't have to go through every single one of them at the end. But Snafu did get married, had a couple of kids, lived a life, and you know, these guys kept in touch, and he did talk to Sledge and visit with Sledge later on in life too. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I thought that was really cool with the train and all of that.
Yeah,
That
it
these
was a
guys
nice
will,
scene.
yeah, and
I
we'll get
like
to
the way
Sledge in a
they did it.
minute. Go ahead, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
I just like the way that they did it, right? Instead of because it's too much to show everyone and what they actually did, just
Yeah,
show them going home to kind of wrap up the story arc, and, I thought that was I mean, that's fine. I don't think we needed to see, Sledge go to China and everything that actually happened, just
no,
kinda this was
I
a
don't
good
think so either. I just think it's important that we just mention it just
Yep.
because of historical fact on
Mhm.
there. But I do thought it was interesting that Snafu is getting off the train. It's at night in New Orleans, and Sledge is asleep.
Yeah,
He didn't even wake him up.
right.
And at first I thought it was like, oh, come on. You wouldn't want to say goodbye to him, but I think he understands just how exhausted he is, you know?
Right, and that they don't need to, right? I mean, they're
Yeah.
close friends, and I don't know if it's not a goodbye because they talked later. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I thought it was okay.
Yeah. It was interesting. So okay. Then we get into Lena, and I thought this was an interesting scene. And I don't know, I know some of the facts about this, but it's interesting. So she goes to visit the Barcelone family, and just to give some more background, we talked about it a little bit, but what had happened is John and her got married right away down there, and he evidently, historically, he requested his dad to give him some money. His family didn't all make it to the wedding. They didn't really get a chance to meet her. They were married for 7 months before he shipped off and got killed. Um, and basically, it's like she didn't get a whole lot of time with them for
Yeah,
them to embrace her as their daughter-in-law. And I think the other aspect that we covered last time is that he was surrounded by all these celebrities, and they were hoping that he would, marry somebody of celebrity
yeah,
status. So, um, but it's interesting. So we get this meeting, and the mom just, she's just ice cold at the beginning. So I don't know. It's awkward at first.
it's an awkward scene, I think, though it's meant to be. I mean, considering how they treated her in real life, his family did not embrace her in real life and,
Mhm.
didn't, invite her to, other things that involved him, so yeah, I mean, it was accurate, and you could see, like, if you didn't know the actual story, maybe this comes across as, like, his parents are devastated, um,
Mhm.
but yeah, they're cold to her. It's her story is very sad. Um, I did like the stars in the window of their house. They've got
Yes.
2 blue
Yes. I was
ones.
gonna mention
That
that.
was a nice touch on walking up to their house, the gold one for John, the
Yes.
2 blue ones for the other sons. I thought that was kinda cool. Um, but yeah, this was just awkward.
Yeah.
Um,
But I
it's
think
sad
you
that in real life they weren't very nice to her.
Yeah, and I heard that his brother and a sister were actually nice to her because they actually knew her or got to know her.
Right.
But the rest of the family was not as kind. But the brother comes down and talks to her and kind of makes it a little bit easier. And then the father reacts to her as well. But like you find out that John didn't sign his insurance paperwork,
Yeah,
which that's just sad. I mean, come
God.
on.
And they could give her something anyway. I mean, my god, look at, like it's like, "Oh, he didn't sign it, you get nothing." It's like, "Come on." He's a national hero,
Yeah.
and yeah, she's in the military too. That was just really lame that they didn't do anything for her.
Yeah, that's sad. And then she gives him the Medal of Honor, which I thought was very touching.
Mhm. That was a nice scene with the father.
So, and then because you also see the background, you see the dining room, which was full of life, and now it's not. It's darkened.
Yeah.
Uh, and then you see the other thing is he gives she gives the medal to him, and the mom kind of embraces her at that point.
Yeah.
Um, which I thought overall it's a good scene, but if you didn't know the history behind it, you would think, oh, okay, so they made up and they did that, which was unfortunately not
Yeah,
the
not
case. So, but yeah, I thought it was a touching scene. I just wish we had more about Lena's story because I think there's a story there.
Yeah,
But as we remarked, I mean, you could do a whole movie about John Basilone, and you probably need to.
100%. Yeah.
So, yep. I mean, gosh, guys, if you're looking for another World War II, do one about him. So,
Hey, Kurt James is here. Good to
yeah.
see you.
Oh, Kurt James is back. Yay. Um, So anyway, so yeah, it's a sad but good scene. And then John Basilone's Medal of Honor is actually in the Marine Museum in Washington D.C. So
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah,
Very cool.
so, but yeah, and then just a few weeks ago was the anniversary of his passing. So uh,
Yeah.
very much a very much a hero. So this kind of bookends our the part of John Basilone's story, which
Mhm.
had the tragic and sad ending that we talked about. All right, we're getting back to Leckie, and I thought this was interesting. So Leckie's going in to his old job, and I kind of thought I got a kick out of this a little bit with his old boss. And his
Yeah.
old boss is like, "Oh, am I supposed to just give you back your old job?" And technically, yes, because the
Yeah.
GI Bill and stuff like that. But I thought this was interesting because Leckie, he comes across as very confident, a little bit arrogant, but I thought it was funny. What did you think of this scene?
Yeah, it was really funny. I liked I liked it. And he just says he talks about the other guy's pros, like criticizing how flat it is and
Uh-huh.
boring. And it's like, yeah, you need to hire me back. And I love their little salary negotiation there. And they're like, he'll give him, wants to get more money. And it's like, I'll give you whatever, 5 a week, or and he wants 10. And then he's like, no, I would have taken 5. He goes, oh, I'll give you
Yeah,
7. It's like, I would have
yeah,
taken 5.
yeah,
So he gets it, and he gets it right back. Gets
yeah,
right back to work. I thought it was cute. I liked it.
yeah. And he says, "Oh, there's a football game going on, so I better get over there."
Yeah.
We haven't discussed salary yet. Yeah. Okay, I want 10. I'll give you 7. I would have taken 5.
Yeah. That's cute. I liked
I
it.
thought it was good. I thought that was a good scene. And then uh, I don't know that I got any pictures of him. So he's looking out the window at Vera, and he notices her dating an army officer, and he kind of spies on her. And I love the scene. I don't have a picture of it, but his mom comes in, and his mom. I thought this was a warm scene. It's a good scene where she encourages her son. She's like, you've got your blues here that you never wear.
Yeah.
And it's mom dropping hints. And I love how mom kind of just takes, care of her boy and kind of encourages him. And I love that scene. Uh,
Yeah. This was a better scene with the mom finally, right? Because 'Cause they're
yeah.
normally his family is so cold, but she sees that he likes her, and she's basically like, "Yep, you gotta go down there and talk to her, like, put on the dress blues," and which is the best uniform. The Marine dress blues are fantastic, so, yeah, put those on and go down and ask her out.
Yeah.
It's good.
Uh, I'm not one to talk about men in uniform like that. So I'll leave that to you, Heather. Uh, but
Don't
yeah,
you
he
don't
goes,
think don't you think the dress blues, Marine dress blues are super sharp though?
I think they are sharp. Yeah. Yeah, they're because they stand out a little bit more. I
Yeah.
mean, the navy whites are classic. Uh, but the other thing about navy whites is like I sit there and I'm like, both my grandfathers were navy, and
Mhm.
so I appreciate them. And then my dad and my uncle were army, so I had my dad's some of the fatigues. I don't have his dress class A uniform, but it's like the navy ones pop because of that blue.
Mhm.
But if I were wearing the navy whites, I'd almost be scared to spill something, you know?
Yeah, to touch anything.
Yeah, it's just like I'm gonna get this dirty, you know? But yeah,
Right.
you're right. There's something about the Marine Corps uniform that's really cool.
Yeah, they're really sharp. I like
That
that.
sharp blue. But
Yeah.
he goes there, and I thought this is funny because his next door neighbor doesn't even recognize him. You know?
Yeah, and they talked about, how much they changed, how much the
Yeah,
war has changed them. They've been there 4 years fighting, and, they don't look the same after that experience. The neighbor doesn't recognize him, which I think
yeah,
that's what that was kinda meant to portray.
yeah. It's cool. And then Lena's like, "Hey, what you doing here?"
That was funny.
Yeah. So Vera's there, and she's like, "Oh, I have a date." This other guy's coming to pick it up, and her date walks up, and he's like, "Well, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "Well, I'm asking her to dinner." And he's like, "Well, are you free tomorrow?" And the other guy's like, "No, she's not free. She's not interested in you." Far be
Wrong
it,
thing to say, right?
yeah,
It's,
far be
you
it for
know
him to, you
It's like,
know,
why are you answering for her? Like,
yeah,
I think that was the moment where she's like, "Yeah, I am." 'Cause
yeah.
he's like, "She's not free, she's not interested." Like, dude, shut up and let her answer for herself.
Well, that and honestly, she's got to be tickled pink over two gentlemen in uniform coming after her. So, um, and then the other thing you find out about this guy is that he's a West Pointer who just graduated, who had not seen all the war and stuff that
Right,
Leckie had seen. So,
right.
but it's interesting how he just kind of that's a waste of gasoline,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he's kind of a jerk, so she just
yeah,
dumps him.
yeah. I mean, he just I get it, and I don't know. There's a debate in my mind that with this scene was like, is this guy really an army officer, or is this guy putting on a uniform to get girls?
Now we
But
see how you think, Rob. Put on
that
the
was the
uniform.
thought. That was the thought that occurred to me. I was like, "What's this guy doing?" No, but he probably was a lieutenant, and
I
probably
think he was.
I think he
Everyone,
was.
given the time
Yeah,
period. I'm
yeah, I
sure
think
he
he
was.
was. You
Yeah.
know, I'm used to shenanigan movies where people try to pull this off. So
Jeez.
it
Well,
would
they're
surprise
outside of
me.
New York, so at West
Yeah,
Point makes sense. They're outside
yeah,
of New York here, right?
yeah, yeah. So, um, and Wes Cagel's
Now
here.
we know what you would have done, right? Oh, let me get some army
No,
uniforms and
no,
try to get a date.
no, not quite. I mean, I have done some interesting things to get dates,
Right.
and we won't
It's
go into
not
those
too
stories.
late, you could find some army uniforms. I think you can go down to the surplus store.
Oh my gosh.
It might not have the same image now, but you could
So
try.
Heather, you're telling me I need to get the Marine Corps one, right? Not the Army or the
Go for the
Navy.
Marine Corps, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Uh, Somehow I don't think anybody's buying that, but don't put ideas in my head. I'm still a single man.
Oh
Uh,
god. Hey,
maybe not
Wes
that
Cagel's
dedicated.
here.
Yay. Uh, but anyway, so yeah, they vie for attention, and then turns out that he decides not to take her out that night, and she and Leckie go out. So
Yeah.
and well, I don't have a scene of their date, but I thought the date was interesting.
I thought the
Um,
date was nice because you could see, like, he's a little uncomfortable at first, more so than like before he left for the war. Because look at the experience he's had, and now it must be so weird to just come back and you're in a restaurant on a date. It's like he's a little bit awkward at first, but she doesn't really push on him or make it weird. She just I thought it was good because then they kind of fall into a good conversation, and I liked it. I liked the part about the letters, like he's talking about, because we see him through this whole series, writing letters to, and their guys are making big deal about it, like, oh, what are you writing? You're writing to your girlfriend, and yeah, it turns out he never sent them. She's like, I never got any letters. It's like, yeah, I never sent them.
yeah, and some points here. You know, basically the other aspect of this is that the reality is that she never gave him the time of day when they grew up together,
Right.
and
When they're kids, right?
yeah, when they're kids and stuff like that, and she just notices him at the very beginning.
Mhm.
There's the first time that
The church.
because remember he had to tell her, "Hey, I live across the street from you,"
Yep.
you know, and the other aspect is like he knows her, but he doesn't know her because he's never been around her, and so there's an intimidation factor of this, and then he he wrote the letters dreaming about who he thought she was, and
Mhm.
he's writing there. And the men did write letters to as a form of therapy as
Right.
well. Usually they did get sent back to sweethearts, but some of them didn't go anywhere. Some of them just kept it and did
Right.
it as therapy, and we get some of these books. Uh, but the other aspect that I want to point out about this is that this is your common thing that for a guy, what we sometimes do is we put women on a pedestal, and we have this image about who we think she is rather than getting to know her. And I think she
Right.
does a good job of kind of easing him back into, hey, get to know me right
Yeah.
now,
Yes.
and it's one of those things that we fall in, and this is me speaking from experience where we get our heads in the clouds about what we want our future to be and how far we want to take it with this girl, when no, you got to be in the moment and get to know the person
Right.
sitting right across from you in the moment.
Yeah. And not
And
trying to act like you think she wants you to act.
exactly.
Yeah.
So very, very interesting, very real. And that's what I liked about it. I thought the
Yeah,
scene was very real
I
and
did
very,
too.
and let's face it, he Leckie is, portrayed as this guy that was very academic, but kind of that geek,
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
and he goes and he goes through all this physical and mental stuff, and he comes back, um, like this changed person.
Mhm.
And I also think it's interesting to see his confidence with the job, his confidence in what he already knows he can do
Mhm.
versus stepping into an area that he has probably didn't explore prior to this.
Yeah,
With
'cause
therapy.
probably didn't have a chance, right? I mean, he's
Yeah.
pretty young, goes to the war,
Yeah.
um, and then come back and have this change. It definitely is, yeah, you see the confidence when he's like, "Yeah, hire me because 'cause I'm the best at this,"
Yeah.
and then the change, but good for mom's encouragement to go ask her out. Turned out well.
Yeah. I did. So, all right. So now we're going to get into Sledge's story. And I think Sledge is the heart of this. Here we do see one little scene with Leckie, and we'll get to that in a minute to wrap up his story. But so Sledge finally gets home, and Sid picks him up, and I thought this was really cool. This scene, Sid's in the car, and he gives him crap about the pipe, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
funny.
he says, "So when did you start with the MacArthur look?" And he's like, "Okay, Popeye the Sailor." Yeah,
Yeah. It's funny. These guys' scenes are great together. It's good to have them back together again like we had at the start 'cause, um, they you never really get to see them in combat together, just the way Sid comes in and gets sent home right when Sledge is coming in. So this was a good wrap up to have those 2 together.
yeah, and he talks about the girl that they knew, and he's like, how do you feel about this girl? And we find out that Sid's going to get married to her, and he's asking to be the best man, and I thought it was great because Sledge is like, what? Huh? No way! And then he finally, he's like, so you're gonna be there at the front? And he's like, hell yeah! And he honks the horn, and and I thought this was a great moment for both of them,
Yeah,
and
that's great.
I think that the other thing about it is that you see Sid's already gone through what we're going to see Sledge going through, and so he can help his friend out, but he's also moving on with his life. And I thought that was interesting because guys came home, and you went back to school, you found somebody, you got married, you started to live your life, but how do you rebuild it in those couple months afterwards? So
Yeah. When honestly, Sledge got a lot worse of an experience than Sid did. I mean, not
Mhm.
that Guadalcanal was any picnic, but, you compare that to then what Sledge goes through with Peleliu, Iwo Jima, Okinawa,
Mhm,
that was horrific.
mhm.
And I know Sid got, he got a similar experience in Guadalcanal, but not the length of time and not the same intensity there. So, um, yeah, I think Sledge got the worst of that whole thing coming in later.
Yeah. And then, we get Sledge surprising his mom. Again, I don't know why the parents don't know when their kids are coming
I
home.
know. Do they just do it for dramatic effect?
I
Like,
think
for
they
the show?
did.
I mean, they must, right? Or they
Yeah.
know and they're just or he wanted Sid to pick him up or maybe he didn't tell them the exact day and time. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's odd, right?
I do think it's a cool shot. She's putting away the china and she sees
Mhm.
his reflection. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
But it's a much warmer scene with their
Yes.
parents hugging them and stuff, hugging him
Yes.
and stuff like that. So,
Yeah,
um,
much better.
and then we have the adjustment. So the brother was in the army, and the brother was over in Europe, and apparently the brother went through some stuff too, but he got home a little bit earlier. And so they're at dinner and they're talking about souvenirs and stuff, and both of them had souvenirs, but I think it's to show the contrast that his brother. I don't think his brother had an easier time, but I think his brother has already processed
Right.
everything
Well,
and
it's
is
not
ready.
easy time in Europe,
No,
but when we kinda like what we talked about, like, you're taking a break off the line and you're going to cities, you're going to more civilization. It's not quite the same experience as being in these miserable conditions constantly. It's a little bit different, and, the Germans, like, had a different mentality. They would surrender, they abided by the same rules of warfare. It wasn't these, the suicide attacks and the, no surrender. It's a little bit different experience when I think, just looking at this, it I know some people will say no, war is bad either way, but the Pacific just seems like a more difficult experience to me.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And then we see how Sledge he's having trouble eating. He doesn't have the appetite yet, and that's one thing that I've heard coming back from war that was hard to process is that you're used to eating rations and only a certain amount every day, and now you've got an abundance of food in front of you.
Yeah.
It's awful hard to do that. And my understanding, when my uncle came home from Vietnam, he had a similar experience. We're getting used to eating bigger meals
Yeah,
again.
normal food, yeah.
And
Well, I read that Sledge was 120 pounds after Okinawa, and he's, like, about 5'8", 5'7", 5'8". I mean, that's super skinny. I mean, that
yeah,
120 pounds, he's, like, practically in starvation mode after Iwo Jima. So, I think he was weighed much more when he went in than and getting 4 years older at a young age, I mean, that's basically you're barely
yeah,
eating there.
yeah. West Cagle says, I know Peleliu wasn't as deadly as Guadalcanal or Iwo Jima, but I think Peleliu is more brutal because of conditions. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Peleliu is difficult. Um, so yeah, it's interesting. And so he had nightmares. And I do like the conversation he had with his brother the next day, uh, where they're talking about it. And the brother actually knows what he's going through. He
yeah.
basically is able to sympathize a little bit with him. And then he's like, this will help. And he puts a little bit of bourbon in the coffee
The
there.
booze and the coffee. It's
Yeah.
always
You know, and then he's telling him about the ball and the girls. And, it's funny because it's about process and how a man processes the different thing after coming home from war.
mhm,
Some of them was, you know, to go chase tail and live it up, and that way they get to forget, and that caused its own problems. Some of them just tried to suck it up and get on with their lives. Others had to retreat
yeah,
and go through this, and that's what you're seeing with Sledge here. So he said he'll never put on the uniform again. It wasn't that he wasn't proud; it's just that a lot happened, and he's
yeah,
processing that. And I
yeah,
thought that was interesting. And I think it's saying that he's going to be himself too. you know,
Right.
he's gonna be
Like, that
himself.
part is done.
Yeah. Mhm. So, and then we get this applying to Alabama Technical College, which is Alabama, which is Auburn University. Um, and it's interesting. Uh, he's not wearing a uniform. He's the only one that's not in uniform, it seemed like in there. And she's asking about tech skills. And I thought this was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, this was funny. It's a good scene because she's, asking him, "What did the Marines teach you? Did they teach you accounting? Did they teach you, she's going through all these things. He's like, "No, they taught me how to kill Japanese."
Yeah, I thought
Yeah,
that was very good.
yep,
And
that's what we did. And I was
Kurt-
good at it.
yep. Kurt James says, I'm grateful served in 83 to 88. Pre-Desert Storm. Yeah, thank you for your service, Kurt James. And thank you to anybody who's watching who served or is serving in our military. We're certainly grateful and thankful for your service. And
100%.
we just support our military and we love our military. That's why we want to do these shows. But yeah, he didn't have any skills. He's like, they taught me how to kill Japanese. And apparently this is a pretty much a true,
Yeah, pretty accurate scene.
pretty accurate scene. So
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you get to the ball, and he's there with Sid's wife, and he walks out, and Sid goes to comfort him, and he's like, "Hey, I could get a date for you to dance with." And Sledge is like, "No, Eugene Sledge will dance when he wants to dance."
Right.
I thought it was cool, and Sid's like, "Hey, my wife's gonna come out here any minute," and she pulls him back, and I thought that was interesting. I like the fact that. Um, that Sid's still looking out for him,
Mhm.
and I
Yeah,
think that's the key thing to getting over this is that you got to have somebody, a buddy or friend to talk to. So,
yeah. No, Sid was great in there, and you could tell Eugene just needs time. He
yeah,
can't he can't just jump right in
yeah. And he's like,
back to normal.
how did we get out without scratches? And yet all these other people died or come back
Yeah,
maybe wounded. So,
yeah.
which I thought was interesting. Um, and then we go to this last scene with Leckie, and it's a dinner scene. And they're at dinner and they're talking about this new invention. And what is the new invention?
The television.
Yeah. So of course they're going to mention the television this, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. And then they're talking about all these union worker strikes, which is interesting.
Well, then
Um,
isn't it the dad? He's like, "Who's paying that much money when there's only 2 hours of programming?" I'm like,
yeah,
"Well, there's, like, thousands of hours now, and it's still not worth it."
yeah. I thought it was funny.
It was
So,
good. It was pretty funny with the TV stuff.
and they go, "Why do we fight?" And Lucky goes, "Why? I fought for
Television.
television."
Yeah.
I thought that was a little bit of a ridiculous line, but
Yeah.
uh,
He's kind of a smart ass character though, and it's like his
yeah,
family's kinda cold and weird. He always has awkward family scenes. This whole series
yeah.
is
And then
is
then
awkward.
they pray, and you know, we saw that he supposedly, went against his religion and as an atheist, and he's holding her hand, and
Which
we
is
do find out
it's a little
which is
weird.
what, yeah,
Not
it was
true.
weird.
Yeah.
It was weird, and it was very much not true. This is not a true depiction, which I thought it was is interesting, but at the same time, this whole scene's kind of throwaway. But he does end up with Vera, and Vera's there, and they ended up getting married, and kind of lived happily ever after, had kids and grandkids and stuff. Um, but yeah, I thought that was interesting that Hollywood's kind of nodding off to themselves. So
Yeah, for sure.
but Kurt James says that he was in the Navy, destroyer duty, journalist, but mostly clerical yeoman. Uh, lots of typing. They trained him to kill copier paper.
Yeah.
I love that. Kurt James, that's awesome.
It's
That's
really
great.
funny.
Watch out for other copier paper, Kurt.
Yeah.
My one of my grandfathers was a pilot in the Navy. The other one was an admiral's aide, and so he was very much a lot of paperwork guy. He was actually stationed in Alaska.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, pretty interesting. So pretty fascinating. So, and then we get back to Sledge, and I thought this is the part that kind of sums everything up. So, um, his dad, you know, takes him hunting, which is something they used to do, and you know, he's like something I've been looking forward to. Again, his dad, I guess, is trying to get back to something normal that he was used to doing, and Eugene breaks down,
Yeah.
and his dad, who's a doctor who served in World War I, knows what to do, knows how to handle it. I mean, I do see some parenting that's really good in this, you know,
Mhm.
like with Leckie's mom and then with Eugene's dad, uh, knowing how to handle it. And apparently the story goes that it didn't play out exactly like here. It he did hunt and he shot 10 birds like with 10 shots.
Yeah.
Like, but then he was just like, I can't
I don't
do
wanna
this.
do this anymore. Yeah.
Yeah,
Didn't
I don't
wanna
want
do
to
it
do this.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And that
his
meant he was
dad,
done after that, yeah.
yeah, and his dad understands and is there for his son. And I love this scene because it's very father son. Um, and you know, he knows what his son's going through and he knows he has to give him space, but he has to gently help him to regain some of his humanity. And it's good that he's breaking down like this because it helps him process it. So
Yeah. But it's good too, his dad had worked, was a field doctor in World War One, and then had dealt with the trauma afterwards with a lot of the soldiers, and that he understood it and kinda knew what it was is good for Eugene. I bad, feel bad for all the soldiers who didn't have someone like that, who come back and they're just trying to adjust on their own.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you know, the other thing is he knows his son so well, how sensitive he was and what kind of person he was, and he's able to kind of help him through this. And I think that's fantastic. And then you have another scene that I don't have pictures for where he's sitting by the tree in their yard and he's got the glasses on. And apparently he wore the sunglasses because in the Pacific it was so bright out and he had a different they helped him be able to see and process because
Yeah,
of the
the brightness.
Pacific compared to back here in Alabama where it's a little bit more rural day or night and stuff. And the mom is kind of getting on him, and the dad just sticks up for him again. You don't know what he went through, you know. His mom doesn't understand because his brother has already processed this and gone through it. His brother is able to move on, and he
Right,
hadn't fully processed it yet. And I love how the dad kind of stands up to the mom and says, "No, you need to leave him alone. You need to let him process it."
right, but probably should have explained to her since he had the knowledge
Yeah,
of being with soldiers after the war that she didn't have. So
yeah,
that because I think it was kind of a repeated thing because she kinda thinks he's just sitting around not doing anything, and I think probably should have maybe shared some of his experience with her.
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree. And then we get the last scene where he's in the field and we see the birds and everything. We see the flowers and stuff. And apparently it's to pretty much indicate that his interest in biology and his
Right,
degrees in biology and chemistry and all that, becoming a doctor. And Sid Phillips became a doctor as well. So different type of doctor, but they're both
right.
doctors. So but it ends there, and then we have the ending montage where it breaks down every character. And I don't necessarily want to go over all of them, but there are a couple that are interesting. So Sledge did get himself together. He got a doctorate in biology and chemistry, and then taught at college, and had kids, and wrote The Old Breed and another book. Sid Phillips became a doctor, a medical doctor, and lived in Alabama. And Marty actually knew Sid Phillips.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
he
pretty
had
cool.
conversations with Sid, and Sid
Oh,
got married and stuff like that, and they remained close friends. Um, you know, we talked about Snafu. Leckie did marry Vera. Leckie and Sledge both died in 2001,
mhm.
so
Interesting.
it was
Same
interesting.
here. Yeah.
Um, so it was interesting. You know, we told you about what happened to Vera. She lived till 1999. She never remarried, which is, you know, her legacy and just what happened to her. We had already talked about her. Any other characters we need to cover or break down?
Yeah, I don't think so.
But those are the main ones, and I
There's
like
the main
how it
character.
did that and told us what
Yeah.
happened. And I do like how they showed the actor and then the actual person again. So
Mhm.
um, I do wish that if they had done this earlier when these guys were still alive, we could have gotten what we got in Band of Brothers, where we got to finally at the end of Band of Brothers, we got to see who the
Right.
actual men were.
Yeah.
Um,
There were only a couple who spoke, and we didn't get the main guys.
yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, this wrapped up the Pacific, and I thought it wrapped up fairly well. Like I said, I mean, episode 10 is very, very straightforward. I mean, it's there's not a whole lot to cover other than the post traumatic stress of it
Yeah.
um, with this. But overall, thoughts on the series?
Overall, I thought it was good, and I think it got stronger as it went along. I think, kind of like we mentioned, the first couple episodes. I remember watching this immediately after Band of Brothers, and I watched the first couple, and then I kind of gave up on it. I think maybe on the Australia episode. Was that episode 3? And I
Yeah.
was like, it's kind of like, I was a little bit disappointed. So this time watching it all the way through, I think that's where it actually starts picking up and getting really good.
Mhm.
It was episodes 4 through 10. The thing that I liked about this better, the only thing better in this one is the ending, that they showed a little bit more of them going home and
Mhm.
back with their families, wrapping it up a little bit. And maybe it didn't need to be a full episode on Band of Brothers, but I wish we could have seen maybe a little bit of that. I know we got like the baseball scene, and it gave the few sentences of what they did, but I like this that showed how hard it is for them to adjust back to normal life when they get home, and dealing with some of that post-traumatic stress. I thought that was a good thing to address in this one, but really eye-opening for me because I know so much more about what happened in Europe. Was pretty ignorant about the Pacific War prior to watching this, and didn't watch just the series, watched a lot of documentaries about the individual battles, and um, yeah, the brutality is just was just horrible. Really eye opening to me what these men went through here. Just made me appreciate this generation even more than I already did.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'm right there with you. Like, last year we covered Band of Brothers, and then I went on that tour, and I got to see all the stuff that happened in Europe. But learning about the Pacific War after learning more about the European theater and just how vastly different they were
Mhm.
from a fighting standpoint, from everything else, is very interesting. Yeah, I agree. I totally appreciate these men a whole lot more uh, than than I usually than I knew, because I didn't know as much about the Pacific. And what I did know about the Pacific was mainly the naval operations.
I'd
Rather
love to get a series on that, just the
that would
naval, and follow people like on a battleship or an aircraft carrier, and
Mhm.
seeing some of that close up. That would be so great to see some of that.
Yeah, I mean, we get films about some of that, but they never, you get some films that are there with the Marines, but not as intense as this,
Right.
you know?
Yeah,
So,
just the way these shows are done, it's just more of a deep dive than a movie. So it'd be so nice to kind of follow the Navy the same way we've done everyone else, and that we'll get to do with the Air Force here coming up.
yep, yep, it'll be pretty cool. So, yeah, next up, next month we'll start Masters of the Air, which is based on a book, and it's the air war in Europe, which is pretty cool. This is gonna be a cool series. I've seen it. Heather has not,
I'm
so
not
she's
sure.
gonna come into it fresh, which will be pretty cool. And maybe we'll try and get Marty on, depending upon his tour schedule. Like he's already he's in the Pacific right now. He was just in
Right.
Peleliu, so he's
Yeah,
doing
that'd be
tours over
great.
there, and he's going to be doing more tours in Europe as well. Which I definitely recommend that you try and take one of these tours if you have interest in World War II, because it's fascinating to hear and go on one of these guided tours. You get to see a lot and get to learn a lot. So, but let's talk about what we got coming up next. We got not next week, but the week after, because everybody's out of town next week, including me, including you. So we've got on the 29th, we are gonna jump in and do the hits of 1979.
Yeah, that'll be fun. A lot of good
So
stuff in 79 too.
yeah, a lot of good stuff in
Interesting, yeah.
79.
Interesting.
Yep. So that, and I've got a couple of, there's some interesting Star Wars AI creations, which I'll share on that. And then Overlord DVD, we're on Pop Culture Breakdown on Wednesday night. We've got an interesting movie, Snatch. So,
Yeah, Snatch. I saw it. I've seen it once when it first came out. It's different. It's funny. It's kind of an oddball kind of thing. It's a weird one, but yeah, I'm gonna watch that again. Looking forward to it. That should be fun to talk about. And God, and then we'll get the final of Starfleet Academy. I think you've already given up on that show, right? You
yeah,
stopped
thank
watching
God.
it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty bad, but at least officially it's the last episode. So.
And we'll go into One Piece season 2, and then we'll also go into a movie that Doomcock mentioned that I finally saw, which is pretty cool, War Machine. So,
Yep.
so if you like, Predator, you'll like War Machine. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, great stuff.
But that's what we got coming up. Thank you guys for being on here. Let's see, in Lombardi 1969 saying, will you cover Stampede at the Who concert in 1979? Yeah, we probably will mention that. By the way, there's a famous episode of a TV show that covers that as well. Do you know what TV show covered that in real life?
Yeah, what was it? Or are you making us wait till the 79 news?
No, I won't wait. I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
Baby, if you ever wondered.
Oh, really? WKRP?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. Well, yeah, that makes sense that it would.
Well, they didn't want to at first, but the actors kind of pushed it, and they covered it because it happened in Cincinnati. So,
yeah, interesting. Okay, yeah, I remember. I mean, super young for WKRP. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces of that show, but not one that I've actually watched. A ton of episodes, full episodes. I've seen bits here and there. So I don't know if you've ever watched it. I mean, now that's pretty early, way back in the 70s, right? Did you ever watch reruns or anything?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, my mom got me watching that when I was young. I have a pretty decent memory. Like I can remember all the way back to when I was like 3, almost 2 years old.
But I just didn't watch it. I mean, it's not when it was on TV. I was a little kid. I just didn't find it that interesting.
Yeah.
So it's a show that I watched.
Yeah. It was a good show. So
I think it was. I mean, I think I'd appreciate it now much more than I'm watching it at 5 years old. Probably not something that I would
yeah,
that into.
Probably not. I probably appreciate it more than I did then. I just thought it was kind of funny. So
yeah, it looks like a good show. It's something I should check out. Like a lot of these shows from the 70s that I have kind of seen bits and pieces of, have vague memories of.
Well, I need to go back and rewatch some shows like Cheers. So I watched it, but I was a kid, so I didn't understand all the sexual humor.
I love Cheers. Cheers was one that was fantastic. I'd love to rewatch that too. That's a great show.
Maybe that's something we may explore. Maybe
once a month. Do a Cheers watch or something. Yeah. Talk about Cheers and do a couple episodes a month. That'd be fun.
So all right, folks. Well, that's it for our show. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and also leave some comments. Still need the watch hours. I'm about 150 short of monetizing. So if you guys could leave some comments afterwards, that does help. YouTube is kind of weird with their algorithms. So we'll find out what it does with this one later on. But take care, folks. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye. See you guys. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.